So now that we've decided on the Todd Cycles bars, there are going to be some modifications that have to be made, especially when it comes to dealing with the heated grips. So for this particular kit, which is kit number A9638105, which is for the Bonneville T100, T120, the Bobber Black Speedmaster from certain VIN numbers, the only things that it comes with is the grips themselves with the wire connectors and the mounting hardware. This particular kit for these series of bikes do not come with additional wiring. So all of the wires are going to be through the original controls, which means that I won't really have to do much mounting inside, because originally for the other wires and stuff like that, I was just going to tie them to the bars themselves. So things we are going to have to look at. These bars, because they are notched by throttle by wire, try to get a decent view of this. The wire itself is going to go through, slip over, and come out that side. Now, here, the wire, if you get a decent look at that, is fitting into the notch for the throttle by wire, but it doesn't go all the way in. So what I'm going to end up doing is extending that notch, and that's going to take the place of the hole that's cut out in the stock bars. Likewise, on this side, I already kind of drew it out, but I'm going to have to notch out the same type of notch so that I can fit the wires in on this side. Once we do that, another thing we're going to have to take into consideration after we slip this on is that there are going to be, because as you can see, the wires will stop at a certain point, so you are going to have to notch that. Here we also have a hole and a hole that you're going to have to drill out into the bar in order to put the mounting screws. Now I'm going to wait until it's notched, and a good way to find the proper position for these holes is I like to take a little bit of nail polish. You know, I use it for marking a lot of stuff, and just take a pencil, dip it in the nail polish, and then just dip it into the hole where you're going to expect, you know, after you get this situated, you're just going to put that into those holes, and that you'll have, once that dries, you have a good place to put your screws. And I'm thinking the last modification that I'm going to have to make is to drill out a small hole that's going to go right around here for the pin for the throttle side controls. In order to make those notches, I am going to be cutting a notch in here, extending this notch here to here, and then I also laid out where I'm going to be drilling that locator for the master cylinder. This is always going to be fun because I have a camera where my eyes should be. So I am going to attempt to not mess things up royally. Say your prayers. I'll appreciate it. After you've gone ahead and cut your notches, it's always a good idea to take your Dremel and smooth out, you know, the inside. Try to get some of those sharp edges ground down so that you're not going to cut your wires when you shove them in. Since we have the notch drilled now, it's just a matter of fitting the grip on, and we now have plenty of space for keeping it where it needs to be. And what we're going to do is we're just going to pick a spot for it, roughly about here, and we're going to mark it using a pencil that we are going to get what was a little bit of, just a drop of that, and we are going to position the grip flush and just dip in there. And then at the top there. For these holes here, we're going to end up using a 5/32, and for the hole that we're going to be putting in the back of here, it's going to be a 1/4 inch. Okay, so I'm going to let that dry before I put in the hole punches, and then we'll drill these holes out. All right, so what we're going to end up doing now is we are going to take off the controls for the other bar, and we're going to take these pieces here and wrap them up in a nice little felt thing to protect the paint and bag it up. So we're going to start with the bar end mirrors, and this is going to be a 4mm, and I am trying to remember, because of the new bar, what I ended up having to do was get a piece of rubber cork, and I shoved that in there, as you can see, and when this tightened up, it ended up being, makeshift. It wasn't the greatest thing. Just put a little T-nut in there, and then, when it cinched up, it would do its thing. And then we got our 5mm, and we're going to use this to pull off the mirror. It is a shame that when, Triumph made heated grips, they didn't think to make a nice brown grip, because quite frankly, the black just doesn't do it for me. I'm looking forward to getting the leather wraps on there. It's still a really good look for them, but I've got my preference. Make sure you hold on to these in case you want to reuse your other bars or your mirrors. Finally got the grip off. It actually wasn't that hard. So when I put it on the last time, instead of using super glue like a lot of people will end up doing, I just used a little bit of hairspray. It stuck on really, really well. All I really had to do in order to get it off, though, I stuck a screwdriver in here just to lift it up a little bit, and I shot some soapy water in, and it came right off. All right, so from here, we are going to need a 5mm in order to get these parts here, these bolts, and on the back there is the T20. So then our T20s are going to be right here. And the other one is, unfortunately, it's hard to get a little bit of a view. I do not have the best lighting in here. Okay, another thing, I really like these rubber ties that Triumph gave me. I know a lot of people will end up breaking these off and losing them when they do whatever their projects are. I'm a big fan of these. I much prefer these to the zip ties. So after I get that, all I'm going to do is wrap up my controls and a little bit of, just leftover felt. Toss it into a bag. So on this side, this is where you have your ride-by-wire system. I always wondered why, you know, Harley had throttle-by-wire, Triumph had ride-by-wire. It was just kind of annoying. You know, why not just call that whole system the same thing? But, you know, you're going to do the same thing here. You're going to have to take the controls off in order to access the grip. So once we get that done, we'll be able to strip everything off of the bars and take the old bars off. So once you got this taken apart, one thing that I want you to pay attention to is on the inside here. This is going to be, you know, real tight, but there are 2 screws here, 1 and 2, and you're just going to loosen those up enough so that you can get a little bit of play here. Okay, once you get that play, you can go ahead, slide your grip right off, and now once you get all your ties off, you should be able to just slide this right off the bar. Now that because I have the extended controls on here, that should have just enough, there we go, to come off. We can go ahead and start removing the bar from the risers here. Now, one thing that unfortunately I'm going to have to wait on, and waiting is always the big pain in the butt, is getting the bushings from the dealership. But the parts that I'm waiting for are the new bushings and little metal inserts for the bushings for the risers that go in here, and that is to help reduce any rocking that'll occur. And now, all right, so when doing the extended wiring harness, unfortunately I started the project and I thought I was taking video and it was just actually a photo. But this is actually really simple. So you're going to get pieces like this. So this is one of the wiring harnesses that goes to the left-hand switch control. Let's just kind of, you know, you'll take off this cover, and this is where you're going to be routing all the wires when all is said and done. So when we look at this mess of wiring over here, because this is where it all comes down to, around here is going, these 2 pieces right here are going to be your right-hand switch housing harness connectors. Then you have this one over here is your blanking plug, and over here are your left-hand switch housing harness connectors. And let's see, I want to say it's this one here should be your twist grip position sensor harness connector. So all I did was take, you know, nail polish like I did with other things, and I just paint the connections so that I know which one goes to which one. So it's really simple. They made this incredibly easy. It's all just plug and play. So you're just going to connect boom to there, and then boom to here, and then, you know, you're in business. So super simple. The only thing that you are really going to have to take into consideration is just kind of how big your handles are. You know, you got to make sure that you are going to have the space. And then when all is said and done, after you get everything put in, then the fun part of trying to make sure that everything fits, you know, back in, and I'm not going to do this one-handed, but you need to make it nice and clean again. Then at this point in time, now that I have the cables all done up, put away, I can now start to think about putting the bars on. So Okay, so this is what threw me off when I got the kit for the heated grips. Every single video I have ever seen on how to install these have been for like the Scrambler, the Twin, and or the Bonneville, you know, just the T120. And it all talks about having an additional cable that you're going to route through here that would go up in through your bars and then connect to it. Now, with the bobber, all of this is in here. And this, on this side, is going to be your connector. So it's really just going to be a matter of taking that plug off and making sure that you got it facing the right way and connecting it in. On this side, you'll notice that the plug here is much smaller and it's much closer to the inside here, so you may have to fiddle with your cable ties, maybe redo it just so that you got enough space. Okay, once you get everything put together, you know, go ahead and keep this kind of loose until you're all set with the bars for placement and everything like that, because you're going to want to make sure that you can still adjust this so that everything is comfortable for you. Now the heated grips will come with these covers, and you'll see it's got a button for the heat, and that button needs to be centered squarely on that. This is going to be a T20 screw that just goes on, you know, the back side. Let me just make sure that this is fitting there. And then they come with these 2 tiny screws in order to secure that into place. All in all, a much more simpler install than I was expecting. It is going to be a lot cleaner after all is said and done. And I was looking at the Oxford heated grips, which seemed like they'd be really nice, and you know, they probably still are just like an amazing heated grip. But then I was thinking I would have to put a control mechanism here or here for that, and this is all going to be running right off the clock there. So when the power's on, all I got to do is hit the switch, high, medium, low, off, and you know, that'll be Christmas. So I apologize, I was unable to get a good video of putting this on just because I forgot that I had to loosen. There's these little T20 screws in here just to loosen this up a little. I forgot to do that, and so now that I was able to get it in there, you know, you can twist your throttle, it'll snap back. So now I got to make sure that I tighten those back up before I put the rest on. Here, as you'll be able to see, is the connector for your heated grip, and here on the inside of the control, as you can see, is the connector. Now, I said before that it is quite, you know, right at the beginning there. So, you know, there's a possibility of having to redo this. I am going to try to make it so that I don't have to, because, well, quite frankly, I'm not the best at doing that. So, then after I tighten this down, it's just going to be a matter of throwing this back on, torquing this down. After I decide where I want everything, I'm going to go ahead and hit it with, you know, the blue Loctite, just to make sure that everything's all set and square. But, you know, we'll see how that goes. Son of a bitch. Oh, hell no. I think I fucked something up. Next video, find out what I did wrong.